Saying good morning to those of you listening to Classic Radio, 105.5, 105.9. Welcome to The Point. For today, it's Tuesday, the 10th day of September, 2024. Also saying good morning to those of you who are viewing us via GBN TV. Good morning to you and welcome once again. What about our social media platforms? Facebook page, YouTube channels. Good morning. Welcome GBN's webpage. Those of you who are viewing and listening via that particular medium, I want to say good morning to you and welcome. Let me say good morning to Mr. Oliver Joseph. Did promise to be back with us today and suddenly kept your promise, sir. And thank you for being with us this morning. How are you doing this morning, sir?
I'm doing fine, and it's a pleasure to be back. We had a very good program last week.
Yes.
And based on the feedback I received, many people thought it was a very good program.
All right.
And actually, they said they're looking forward this week to call.
All right.
So you probably get a few calls.
All right. And so we get to get some more clarifications this morning.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Of course, you have the option of expressing your views and concerns as relates to some of the supplementary estimates that we, of course, will be going through this morning.
Right.
Now, I want to pick up a wee bit on where we left off last week. The grand total of $269,898 and $86 million, sir. Your of course, your views on that, of course, grand total. The implementation of that grand total, we only have approximately three and a half months before this of course estimate could be implemented, and the relatively all that is said between the estimates to have this taken care of. Your views on that, sir?
Right. So the total is 269.89 million, made up of capital grant of 5.3 million. Local capital resources, 233 million, and recurrent expenditure, there are line items that amounts to 31 million for recurrent expenditure. Now, last week what I said was this sum is quite a huge amount to implement in the next 3 months. Because usually the budget is presented around the first week in December.
Yes.
So what will happen shortly, the Ministry of Finance, because in September, will send out a budget circular to all ministries asking them to start preparing the budget, start preparing for the new budget. And by the end of November, they will ask them to close expenditure for the year. So you really have September, October, November. If you have claims inside and so on, that might be dealt with, but then it comes to an end because, as I said, the new budget will be coming up soon. Some of the items that have been placed in the supplementary estimate, in my view, I think they could have waited for the new budget in December, instead of trying to put everything there, because, as I mentioned, when I went through the estimate, what I did was to look at the line that says burial response.
Yes.
Which is necessary.
It's specifically your concern.
Yes. So you're responding to burial, no problem. You have the budget. But there are other items that, in my view, so for example, say the $3.5 million to purchase vehicle under the Prime Minister's ministry.
Yes.
Yes, you need vehicle. In my view, you could spend 1.5 million this year because you just, to buy vehicles and put the rest in the new budget.
Yes.
Going forward. But the government chose not to do that. They think that they needed the 3.5 million to purchase vehicle, which is a large sum given the situation with burial and the need to use resources to assist the people affected, especially Carriacou and Petit-Martinique, and the north of the island. I think there could have been better allocation of the resources to respond directly, to these people. So that is what I want to start out with. I will not go over the different lines because we did that.
We did most of that.
Most of the time. We did not reach Carriacou and Petit-Martinique.
And so that's what's going to be, our pivotal, of course, discussion today. So we see in Carriacou and Petit-Martinique, they have a grand total of 18 million 18,500,185. With Hurricane Beryl response, we're seeing $15 million. And that, of course, they're saying that the supplement, the support for rebuilding the economy of Carriacou and Petit Martinique.
Right. So I'll come to that last.
Yes.
The first item, and the Carriacou, because you only have 3 items there.
Yeah.
Because I've heard.
No, as you mentioned that your main cause was for Hurricane Beryl response. So
yes, right. The Hurricane Beryl response. But I will come to the Hurricane Beryl response because I want to spend a longer time on it.
Okay.
The other 2 are just straightforward.
Okay.
So if you look at public assistance, $426,088, and it's needed to continue making the payment.
Yes.
Now, an item like that is needed because you did not have sufficient funds budgeted in the 2024 budget when you presented it.
Okay.
So yes, so that, in fact, that is one of the main reasons for a supplementary estimate.
Yes.
You might have missed some things, or you did not budget sufficiently. In this case, the $426,000 is to ensure that payment is made to the end of the year.
So that's understandable.
That is, yeah, of course, and that is not really responding to Beryl. It's the public assistance that you have to pay, and that is understandable. Then the second item is road rehabilitation, and it says for $3 million that to continue projects.
Yes.
Well, you need that. I suppose the roads have been damaged as a result of Beryl.
Yes.
Plus there are other roads that you started before Beryl or other projects from the Ministry of Works that you will need to continue.
Yes.
And you have $3 million allocated. Whether you could use it by the end of the year, that is another story. Then the third line item there that you asked me about is the Hurricane Beryl response, $15 million. But look at the justification for it. It says to support the rebuilding of the economy of Carriacou and Petit Martinique.
Yeah.
Now the economy is made up of all different sectors. All different sectors. Because in the economy, you have production, distribution, all these things comprising the economy.
Yes.
So it just broadly says $15 million for rehabilitation of rebuilding the economy. Now,
so help us understand that a wee bit.
All right. Now, the economy has been devastated.
Yes.
So you need to rebuild it. You need to inject money in infrastructure, that is, in the agricultural sector, in the fishing sector, because in different sectors that make up the economy.
Yes.
So you need to put money there. So that $15 million should be spent in helping rebuild the economy. No problem there. But in and then the total for Carriacou amounted to $18.5 million. But I'm not seeing there directly under Carriacou and Petit Martinique where it says $18 million to rebuild houses. The reason I raised that because I've heard on our next program by a government minister saying that $18 million has been allocated for rebuilding houses in Carriacou.
Is it additional? Is it that an additional $18 million in terms of what has been put forward in the estimates already? Or is
additional where? Because if you want to spend it, because it's not in the original 2024 budget because there were no Beryl.
Yes.
So it has to be in the supplementary estimate. But I looked through the supplementary estimate and did not see any allocation of $18 million to rebuild houses in Carriacou. So I was a bit taken aback. I would be happy if $18 million is budgeted, funds is available somewhere that you could spend on it. But the person went on to say that it is budgeted for. And the $18.5 million, as I just outlined, does not say, there is not a line item that says for rebuilding of houses in Carriacou. So, and I look through the entire essay. I look under the Ministry of Housing. I look under the Ministry of Construction, Infrastructure. I'm not seeing it. So, maybe somebody will call and point us to where this 18 million is allocated, because I'm not seeing it. So this is strange.
Maybe for the benefit to give them the benefit of the doubt, I'm seeing the total that is expenses is 18,500,000.
Yeah, right.
Is it that what the
well, I don't know.
The extra conversation that you
no, well, you see,
is it that what is speaking of?
Well, I don't want to make any assumption.
Yeah.
When I'm here dealing with the facts,
yes,
and I'm reading the figures that's stated, so I cannot make assumptions that it is somewhere else. You see, remember, our discussion is on the supplementary estimate.
Understandably
so that is what I am going by. So I'm not seeing it. I anxiously look under Carrico and Pitimatnik. 3 items, very straightforward, very simple. And I would like to know where. First of all, I have not heard the cost of rebuilding Carrico. I'm not sure if the assessment report is ready.
Okay.
To say, well, based on the assessment done. I heard the Minister of Finance was on a program Sunday, the Bob report. And when he was asked the question about the cost, estimated cost, he said he think the damage was around 1/3 of the GDP. Mm-hmm. Well, you had damage in Carrico, Pitimatic, and the north of the island. I will have to look and see what is the GDP.
Yeah, all right.
For 2024, the GDP, when the figures come out, to know 1/3 of what we're talking about. So if it is the GDP is 3 billion, then 1/3 will be 1 billion.
Okay.
But that is not a estimate based on an assessment of the damages done yet, because you need some specific figures. In the Ivan case, the damage was estimated at twice time the GDP.
If I had to ask a question, with the 15 million that is in the allocation for burial relief, without a proper assessment, is that $15 million a credible figure?
Well, you see, I don't know again. You see, I deal in facts and figures here. To put the 15 million to give support to rebuilding the economy, it will have to be based on something.
Yes.
Well, why 50? Why not 20?
Well, it's primarily my question. What is that $50 million? Yes, it's based on the asset, the rebuilding the economy. And as you mentioned, is that enough to rebuild the economy of Carrico and Pitimatic as it stands? No.
I don't know. I don't know the basis. Remember, government is the one working out these figures, and coming up with it. The team in the Ministry of Finance, and perhaps there will be external experts who trained in this sort of assessment doing it. I'm sure the government would have to get some sort of report before you put $15 million to rebuild, because you don't just put numbers like that. We'll have to have some basis for coming up with the figures that you have. They could say, well, it says to support. So, other money will be spent.
Yes.
And this is just to support the rebuilding. But, of course, the 15 million still have to be based on some sort of analysis of the situation. And, therefore, it is not clear based on the explanation to say rebuilding the economy. So that is.
So would you all like to see it should be specified which sector of the economy will rebuild by that 50?
No, well, if it's the economy, it's all sectors.
But when I'm saying all sectors, it would be focused in any particular area. Would it be focused maybe on the housing sector?
Well, the thing is, I have not seen a plan to accompany this estimate. A plan of an implementation plan. Then.
Yes.
All right. So you have 269 million. You state in various votes. The purpose for it. I have not seen an implementation plan. I don't know if the government they probably have one. It will be done in phases. How it will be done, phase 1 will be that, phase 2, phase 3. I'm saying I have not seen it. I'm not saying there is not a plan because I don't know.
Okay.
But you will need to work with an implementation plan so that, for example, if you say you're going to build 200 houses that we discussed last week in the north of the island, and you have a plan in the next 3 or 4 months, how many of these houses and at what costs, and you're going to be open for tendering and everything like that. There must be some clear plan going forward in order to achieve your outcomes, your goals, what you want to. And of course, as I keep mentioning, the implementation rate, which I said last week, if we achieve 60%, we'd have done well. Well, I mean, the government side may say, well, we could do 90. Well, we will see when the budget is presented and the debate starts, we will see the government. I'm sure the government will give a report on how much you're able to achieve. And then how you measuring the achievement. So, for example, if you say you're going to build 200 houses and you build 100, you say, well, we achieve 50% in that area.
All right.
You said you're going to build 20 roads, and you build X amount, you could measure the percentage. But in the overall scheme of things, where you plan it in various ministries and things, if you're using the expenditure method, you could say, all right, well, out of the 269, we spent 75%. So you said, well, we had an implementation rate of 75%. It's not as straightforward as that, but just making it as simple.
Okay. So are you saying that the opposition concern as it relates to some of the estimates that is given, there's not much, of course, explanation given for the use of it? Are you saying that's one of the main concerns that you're?
That is one of the concerns. You see, in Parliament, the debate should assist that because the various ministers in Parliament will speak to their various portfolio and explain how it will be implemented, how they will achieve it, what mechanisms they have. That's the sort of thing in a budget debate you need to know. That's what people are listening, for. You have the numbers, the figures there, and people want to know what plans you have. How are you going to get this implementation rate up? Because as I mentioned, that is a problem that have faced many governments, including our government.
Yeah.
The slow implementation rate. Because, again, I mentioned after Ivan, well, I was not in politics, I was a civil servant, but I remember the government at the time establishing the ARD, the Agency for Rural Development, because the government recognized that if you were depending on the hardcore and the core public service, you would not get that implementation rate you want.
So are you trying to say that maybe an agency of that nature should be implemented now to assist government in terms of remedying some of the issues?
Well, they could call it what they want, but I'm saying that perhaps you need a separate body. Yeah. A separate body to implement some of the. Of course, the gravity of Ivan is no way compared to what's happening.
We can't weigh the comparison.
Right, we can't make the comparison at all. So the government figure, well, you can't do the comparison, and so there is no need to set up an institution. So you don't have to set up a whole institution on its own, but you need to have in place, maybe call it a monitoring committee.
Yeah.
Made up of professional people that could advise the government and guide them and say, listen, we said we're going to do this, but that has not happened. I think you need to do that. Yeah. In some places you have a monitoring and evaluation committee that are set up to look at these things and advise. So you want to know, okay, for example, if we establish this committee and you see they will report by the end of September what has achieved. Right? You want to build 200 houses. You want to build 20 roads. You want to spend $3 million in Carrico and the infrastructure. Mm-hmm. At the end of September, where are we? Right? End of October, they give a report.
What else the opposition has been hearing, if you can share such information with us this morning, about the total rebuilding process of Carriacou and Petit Martinique, that will spring off from the estimates that's been allocated. What else the opposition been hearing? What kind of progress has been taking place in Carriacou, if you could share such information?
Well, based on what we have been hearing, is that the people of Carriacou are still waiting to see the government start any serious work. So, for example, you hear about school cannot reopen because they are shelters.
They are used as shelters.
But we knew that from day one.
Yeah.
That we knew that the schools were used, or in fact are still used as shelters. We knew that on the 2nd of September the new school year would start. The Minister of Education, in his first interview after Beryl, said he's optimistic that school will open in Carriacou on the 2nd. I don't know where you get it. His optimism, I think, was misplaced, because you know that the schools are occupied and you are not making alternative places ready for these people to move to. But yet you're optimistic. And then 2 weeks before school opening, you said, no, we cannot open school because it's still occupied. But that's not a new problem. Okay, opening school is just one. First of all, when you relocate the people that are in the school to make way for the opening of the school, Carriacou gets their main source of water come from the rain, you know.
Yes.
They collect it. So the school would have a problem for water because you don't have roof. How many roof you have left standing? And that's how they get the water, right? If you have a desalination plant, I think there's a desalination plant operating, you need to have connection to the schools to ensure that when school open, you have water in the school. Because, I mean, there are a lot of students you're talking about.
That's essential.
Of course. Needed. Yeah, you see, there are a lot of auxiliary things that are needed that I think enough attention is not placed on. For example, even for the students getting to and from school, where they are located is a problem because some of the roads are not even cleared yet. So what we are picking up from Carriacou is that the people there are very anxious to get things back to normal. At least everything cannot happen in 2 months. The government can't build back or everybody's houses in 2 months. We are not saying that. We are saying that people need to see you doing something. So clearing up the area, if that's the first task, based on your plan, making preparations for school. Now I've heard in the news that the playing fields that were used to dump the debris, 2 have been cleared up, because students will need the facility. So they are making preparation for this playing field so that students can use the playing field. I have not heard about any plan to set up a huge tent in the playing field to a classroom under it.
All right.
So, these things.
Anyway, so we drew for a break. Let's take it. We come back and have further discussion. Stay with us. It's To The Point here on Classic Radio. We'll be right back after the break. Don't touch it dial, folks.
Here at Concord Distributors Limited and Grenada Steelworks Limited, your local hardware store, we offer a wide variety of hardware and household items, such as roofing sheets in a variety of colors, building materials, electrical, plumbing fixtures and fittings, tiles, doors, windows, and more. Visit Concord Distributors Limited on Dusty Highway in Grand Anse, or call us today at 444-4692 or 444-1024. You can also reach us via WhatsApp on 407-1024 or visit our Facebook page, Concord Distributors Limited. Concord Distributors, the name you can trust for all your construction needs.
Get ready for non-stop cricket excitement as GBN brings you live coverage of this year's Republic Bank Caribbean Premier League. Please note there will be some adjustments to our regular programming lineup. On Tuesday, September 10th through Friday, September 13th, transitions will be at 5:05 p.m. GBN Television News will air at 6 p.m., followed by a repeat right after the CPL match. And don't miss the rebroadcast of transitions after the news repeat. GBN with you anywhere and everywhere with the best in sports coverage. Stay tuned and stay informed with GBN.
I want you to control your anger. There's a way to feel better. That's one thing to remember. No matter where you are, you can be a star. Stop and take a deep breath and relax yourself. Take another deep breath and relax it, and relax it. Eliminate violence.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back, viewers, to The Point, Classic Radio, GBN TV. Welcome back to our listeners via social media platforms. Welcome back, of course, it's Oliver Joseph of this morning representing the opposition here on the program this morning. I wanted to ask a question as it relates to the debt suspension. We have heard different explanations being given by the Prime Minister himself. When I did have him on the program here, we heard other government ministers speak as it relates to it. I haven't heard from the opposition, their views on it. Some folks are saying, was it necessary to have it now, knowing that with Beryl, in comparison to Ivan, it was understandable with Ivan, when we had the debt suspension, it was because of the magnitude of the damages that occurred. No, with Beryl, and we have the debt suspension. Yeah, from the opposition point of view, what's your take on that?
Right, and very good question. In fact, I'm happy you raised it because after my last program, I met some people who said, "But you didn't talk about the debt suspension." So I'm glad you raised it. Now, first of all, let me define what is a debt suspension before I give you the opposition position on the debt. Mm-hmm. So, the government is in debt. You have bilateral debt, multilateral debt. So bilateral will be between two countries. The word say bi.
Yes.
Bilateral, and you have multilateral. You have the large financial institutions, and then you have bondholders. Now, if you get a debt, the government seek a debt suspension, it's not a waiver or a write-off of debt. You suspend it.
Yes.
So if they grant you a debt suspension for 1 year or 2 years, after that, you have to pay back the debt with interest. You have to pay back the debt, It's just been suspended.
Yes.
So the government will have to determine whether or not we should avail ourselves of using the debt suspension clause, bearing in mind that the government received $118 million upfront payment, which in Ivan you didn't have that, but you have that as a buffer. Now, if you go for the debt suspension, when the year up or whatever period, you have to pay it with the interest, and therefore it becomes a burden on you because you continue paying other debts and then you have to pay these debts that were suspended. So the government will have to carefully analyze the situation. Mm-hmm. It's reserved what the funds now, how much money. That is why the estimate is important to know. How much grants you will get now, or how much you have received already, to determine how much more money you will have to continue, or because you have to do all the other normal government work expenditure. So I'll remind you of the time of COVID. Remember, the financial institutions, most of them, announced that they are offering a debt suspension that for the people who want to avail themselves of the opportunity, they can come in and talk to the institution
and get that moratorium.
And get a moratorium.
Yes.
You know, my advice to everyone who contacted me and to my friends is, if you are getting your salary every month, do not take it, because it would not benefit you.
Okay.
So you get your salary every month, do not, because if you take it for the 1 year, when the year ends, then you have to meet all your obligation with interest payment. What if the bank wanted to help you? What they will do is say, we will forgive the interest during the moratorium period. Yes. But if you have to pay the interest and your capital, which will add up at the end of the year, then you are in a worse off position. That is no different from how the government getting the suspension. The government is in the same position where they must carefully analyze whether now, given the financial situation they're in, it's better to continue to pay the debt rather than seek the suspension. What debt suspension does is give the government room, right, to use the money that you would normally have to pay the debt with. So say, like, if the government obligation is $2 million every month for debt repayment, just an example, and they will say, okay, we'll give you a break for 1 year. So instead of paying us $24 million, you get it to use, to continue your expenses. That is really how it operates. You get you get a year. So during that year, you don't pay the debt. The money that you would normally use to pay the debt, you keep it to do other things.
Yes.
But bearing in mind, you have to pay it back at the end of the moratorium.
Okay.
So I'm sure the government will have their economic advisors, the World Bank, IMF, and so on, will have discussion with the other financial institutions as well to determine, first of all, as I said, that is why the estimate is so important. Is it 1 billion you need to restore the damages for Carrico, Pitimatic, and the North? If you need 1 billion, so I'm just saying how much money do you have? How much money, and therefore how much you will need? Do you need to borrow more? How much would you have to borrow? Right?
Yeah. And
how would the debt suspension help us? All these variables would be taken into consideration in terms of government taking the decision whether or not to go for a debt suspension. They have the clause there, they can seek it. Of course, they will have to negotiate with their partners. Now, for what we are saying as the opposition is that the government must bring together, must seek proper advice, do the analysis, because they are the ones that have the figures, not the opposition. They have the figures, they know how much money they will get, and make a determination that will be in the best interest of the country.
All right.
If you seek the debt suspension.
Another question I'd like to ask is, as we move along this morning, we saw in Parliament, and you spoke about it this morning, that that the members of government should have the option of course, speaking in relation to what they will be doing to the allocations that they of course will receive in as a supplementary. And we saw the opposition and had to walk out on Parliament, not being able now to pose those questions to the ministers and stuff like that. Your take, should the opposition have remained? I understand the whole squabble that happened and everything. In terms of getting those answers from government ministers, in terms of the way they will be putting those allocations through, of course, to the various constituencies and so forth, especially for Carrico and Pitimatic and so forth.
First of all, the Speaker erroneously suspended the leader of the opposition. There was no need for that. And the meaning that he cannot take further part in the debate. Not only he cannot speak on what he was speaking, he cannot take, he suspended him from taking further part. So how will ask the question? He will sit there and just wait and listen, do everything? He said, no, well, if you suspended me from parliament, so it's not just the case where the opposition leader just walk out, He walked out after you were suspended, Now, the speaker had a lot other choices. He could have handled it better, and I heard former president of the Senate, Chester Humphrey, gave a very good explanation of how the speaker handled it and the way it should have been handled differently, and what other options that the speaker had. I mean, I in fact, I listened to him to this statement by Senator Chester, because he has 30 years serving in the upper house. And I learned a lot. Even I served in the parliament. But he came to the conclusion that the speaker, that is his conclusion, that the speaker lacked the knowledge of the rules. He concluded that by the way he handled the situation and other events, he concluded that the speaker is not conversant with the rules. And therefore,
cognizant of that is understandable, that. But my question, as I pose, is just that if we, as you mentioned, we haven't learned a lot about the allocation from the various ministers from the government side. You understand? And by the opposition walking out, and as you mentioned this morning, there was not enough information given from the ministers, or even here, even though they did probably after. But after the squabble occurred, I guess the whole interest we have the
but if you tell me leader suspend him and he can't take no further part in the discussion, so how they will ask the question? Because he was suspended.
Most of people looking to listen to hear Dr. Mission disseminate the supplementary budget and give information that is needed. I
was looking forward to it too, and the population was looking forward to Dr. Mitchell's contribution, but he was not allowed to do it because he was suspended. The speaker said that you are suspended from the session. I thought he would suspend the discussion on the statement, because neither side could have proved that, and yet he suspended it. So
we drew for a break. Let's take it. And the next segment, folks, we invite our listeners and viewers, if you do have a question or two for, of course, Mr. Joseph, you can feel free to do so in the next segment. 435-2041. You have double options. You can call via the WhatsApp, or you can call direct 435-2041. Let's take that break, and when we come to the line, so we'll be opened for your, of course, contribution in the next segment. We'll be right back, folks.
Mobility, a common theme woven into the very fabric of human history. From ancient wanderers to modern explorers, our instinct to move, to seek something greater, and to grow has always driven us forward. Imagine a journey into pathways of boundless opportunities and endless possibilities. A collective future where the vibrant rhythms of the Caribbean, rich culture, and welcoming community create unforgettable experiences.
Get ready for non-stop cricket excitement as GBN brings you live coverage of this year's Republic Bank Caribbean Premier League. Please note there will be some adjustments to our regular programming lineup. On Tuesday, September 10th through Friday, September 13th, transitions will be at 5:05 p.m. GBN television news will air at 6 p.m., followed by a repeat right after the CPL match. And don't miss the rebroadcast of transitions after the news repeats. GBN with you anywhere and everywhere with the best in sports coverage. Stay tuned and stay informed with GBN.
Listeners, welcome back, viewers. It's to the point, of course, the final segment, approximately 15 minutes or so left on today's program. And in this segment, of course, we'll invite your calls from your listeners and viewers this morning. If you do have a question or two, you may like to ask. And I would like to keep it as precise as possible, your questions, so that we could accommodate as much callers as possible. Let's take our first caller. Caller, good morning. You're welcome and you're live.
Yeah, good morning. In relation to what Mr. Joseph said, the opposition leader was suspended. But as a matter of fact, since every time this party is in office in terms of opposition, Keith Mitchell always making a contribution and just walk out. But we're not dealing with that. Even though he was suspended, right, the other members of the opposition, they had all right to stay and make contributions because we are paying them. People don't understand. I keep on saying all the time, we are paying them and they are responsible for a certain sector of, they represent other people. They represent people. And even though the leader was suspended, they had all right to stay and debate it. There was no room. I mean, there was no justification for that. And to tell you the honest truth, I find that is a total insult to the Grenadian people who are paying them. Regardless of what happened, even though it's better it's NNP, and I make no apologies for NNP or NDC, because it's a thing that people are accustomed doing. Right? I'm saying to you, regardless of what happened in Parliament, Parliament is a place where the people's business is conducted, that we're paying you to do. And you have all the right to stay and scrutinize the government and ask questions. You don't walk out like that. It is highly disrespectful.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much. 435-204. Any response to the caller? Because caller.
No, the caller expressed her opinion. I respect her opinion, and I respect the decision of the other members to walk out with the leader.
All right.
Yes.
Caller via WhatsApp. Good morning. You're welcome. Caller via WhatsApp. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Oliver. Mr. Oliver Joseph. Okay. Okay. Just to piggyback on what the lady said, because she took my question. That was one of my questions. All right. Okay. Seeing that the other members walk out, right? Do you think that the state should pay them for the day? Because remember, the teacher, you say if you don't work, you don't get paid. And remember, we employ them. All right. So my question to you, do you think that they should be paid for the day? And my second question is that has nothing to do with the supplementary. Mr. Joseph, we're hearing from Lawrence Joseph about a committee that was supposed to be formed in the NNP. And if that committee formed, I mean, they will choose people for the leadership, and that will exclude Peter David. Is this illegal based on your constitution?
All right, thank you, caller.
Also, you mentioned something about the MIT and the allocation for the MIT. You said you are listening to Kel and Bob, all right? And the Minister of Finance was there, and he broke down that MIT wasn't receiving no money, but to oversee what really going on with the projects and them. So I wanted to explain these questions and them that I did ask about. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much. 435-2041. Now, of course, Mr. Joseph, respond to the caller.
Whether or not they should be paid, well, of course they have to be paid. They went to Parliament, and the Speaker chose to suspend the leader and the leader. So that's not an issue here. With respect to the committee and whether it's unconstitutional, I cannot give an opinion on that. And the third one, no. So MIT has 24.5 million. Every ministry has an allocation. And when you put an allocation to a ministry, that is the ministry that gets to say how the money will be spent. In fact, it says what this money needs to be spent on. So the allocation of 24.5 million includes the building of 200 houses, and he said it will be done under the ministry. So that is the ministry that is responsible. That is the ministry that will be held accountable if it is not implemented. That is how it is done for all. That is why you have different ministries and different votes, and different allocation. So if you give the allocation, instead of, you choose not to give it to the Ministry of Housing, to build the 200 houses. And that's the government's right. They could put it wherever, ministry. But you choose to put it under MIT. So MIT is responsible for the implementation of that program under its ministry. There is no question about that.
All right. We do have another caller. Caller, good morning. You're welcome, and you're live.
Hi, good morning to you. Good morning to you, GT, and good morning to you, Mr. Joseph. I like your approach in looking at the supplemental budget. I think we need to get some further explanation as we go along in terms of the plan, and of course, eventually, some reporting on the actual expenditures. Of how that budget is being drawn down. But the matter I want to speak about is the matter of the walkout. And parliamentarians are elected to represent their constituencies. And it's something they should take very seriously. And they are paid to do that. And I'm getting a sense that the leader of the opposition is waiting for every little opportunity every time not to be in the parliament. And now it is. Some people are so losers. They can't stand it. They can't be there. They don't want to be there. They're not at the helm. But I think it is in poor taste. The last time a major bill was being discussed about crime in our country, the government was accused of being soft on crime. A major bill. Could you imagine the leader of the opposition giving priority to a high school graduation? This is pathetic. He gives priority to a high school graduation. There are dozens of graduation in this season. One day in Parliament to discuss this all-important bill. And the other members, one of them whose spouse is a police officer, voted against. And the others, they declined to vote. Major matters. This one was one where the first thing after the hurricane, man, there are problems, in the way the thing is being done, but try to be there and to discuss this thing. Even the leader who doesn't seem to want to be there, he's always pushing something to get out. Either on his own with some excuse, or he jukes a fight, as we say, so that he'll be put out or asked to stop. But this is the disrespect. This is a disservice to the people, especially in those constituencies have voted these people. They seem to have no regard for them, and they seem not to want to do the work that they were voted for to do, and they are being paid to do. And to me, this is disgusting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Thank you. Respond to the caller, Mr. Joseph?
Well, the caller has expressed his view. There are a lot of different views on this matter, And I respect the caller view. He has his view. He has his own opinion. I have my view on the situation because sitting in Parliament is just one small part of representation. It's very important. But as a former member, parliamentary representative, when I go to my constituency office, and I see 50 people almost every week. So you see 200 people, I think I'm serving the constituency. Yes, parliamentary debate, that's critical, that's important, but people have various views on it.
We do have another caller. Caller via WhatsApp. Good morning, and you're live.
Yes, good morning, Telesford. Mr. Joseph, good morning to you also. Before I make my comment, I want to make reference in terms of the speaker and parliamentarian and things. How I think I would have handled it. What I think could have been done, the speaker asked the leader of the opposition to withdraw the statement. The leader say not withdrawing because the member from Carrick would say that is not what I see. Right. How I would have go about it? I would have put it on pause and say, okay, if you cannot approve what was said, in a next sitting, you will come with the accuracy. If not, then you apologize. But what I think, it was of key importance that you come in to make a contribution towards the supplementary budget, which the supplementary budget can affect everybody, irrespective to the political party and which side you sit on. I think we major in minor sometime in Parliament, and we have to sometimes look at the major aspect. And I think the opposition leader should have applied some good judgment and wisdom. Here, there is something that can affect everyone in the country. Whatsoever the representative of Carrico say, that is minor to what can affect everybody. So, at a time, if it can be proven, then an apology can be made. But the next question I want to ask Mr. Joseph, the Public Accounts Committee, I want an explanation. Who comprise, how it is made up, what is discussed? Because if the Public Accounts Committee have both members of the government and members of the opposition, and they are to scrutinize things there, why all the ills is not pointed out there, and why when it comes to Parliament, that the other members of the Public Accounts Committee might pretend like first time they hear, first time they know, when they have an opportunity to be part of the Public Accounts Committee and contribute. I want explanation on that, please.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, so the caller expressed his view on what happened in Parliament, and that's typical. If you go around the country, you'll get a lot of different varying views. So, in fact, I love to hear different views and matters. Yeah, the Public Accounts Committee, caller, that's a good question. The leader of the opposition chairs it. But what is the Public Accounts Committee? What accounts they need to look at? So the public accounts, that is government accounts. But the government account must be submitted. The accountant, he has to go to the accountant general, then the audit department, and the report is then submitted to Parliament. And the Public Accounts Committee will examine the report. But if there is no report coming forward, then what is the committee going to examine? And there has been delays in submitting the Public Accounts Committee could meet and deliberate on it. And that is something that needs to be addressed by the members of Parliament so that they could have a proper functioning Public Accounts Committee.
We do have another caller. Caller, good morning, you're live.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, Mr. Oliver. Now, I heard the Minister of Andy Williams talk about building back better. And I don't think he understands Carrico. Because Carrico people depends on rain harvesting. And now we are in the rainy season. And most of the roofs are gone. So they can't collect water in the tank. So coming dry season, most of them will be thirsty. We have a bigger problem in Carriacou because there will be no water in Carriacou. So we have a bigger problem coming towards the dry season in Carriacou. With the more time we waste on building back people roofs in Carriacou, building back the houses in Carriacou, we are actually creating a bigger problem for people in Carriacou. Have a nice day, sir.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much.
That's a very important point. You see, unlike Grenada, where we have rivers and so on, we get water, the people of Carriacou depends on rainwater, so building back the roof is critical so that they can collect the water and store it. So the caller has a very good point. That is something we must never take for granted. And as I mentioned, even if for the opening of schools, they will have to have water.
All right.
In large supplies.
We do have another caller. We can, of course, take an extra 5 minutes or so. So let's take this caller. Caller, good morning, and you're live.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, Mr. Joseph. Yes. So what I notice is on very important, thought-provoking questions, Mr. Joseph says he has no opinion. But then things like the walkout, confusion, TB, things that shouldn't be done, he has a lot of opinions on things that are wrong and peripheral. But if you ask him a real question, he's saying he has no opinion. I find him to be very evasive, very cyclical, and inarticulate. I don't even know how he got to that position. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Thank you for
If any caller asks me a question, I will answer. If they express an opinion, that is their opinion. I never said I did not have an opinion because I said to you when you asked me the question about what happened in Parliament, I said the leader of the opposition was suspended by the Speaker and therefore he could not take part, and as a result, the entire opposition team walked out, and that is their right to do. But the last caller need to distinguish when a question is asked. When the caller is expressing their opinion, I respect people's opinion, but I do not have to respond to the opinion. I only respond to questions.
We do have another caller. Caller via WhatsApp, good morning, you're welcome. Caller, good morning.
Gentlemen, morning. Hi. What is that?
Caller, go right ahead, please.
Okay, thank you.
Problems there. Let's try another caller. We lost that one. 4352041. We probably could accommodate one more caller, and then we get to wrap today's program up. 4352041. If there's someone wants to make a contribution this morning, you still have that opportunity to do so. Let's try a WhatsApp call once again. Caller via WhatsApp. Good morning. You're welcome.
Okay, GT, just a question that about the committee, right?
Be brief on it, please, huh?
Yes, quick. Okay, Mr. Oliver Joseph, what the members of the opposition from that committee, wasn't them the first set of people to get a copy of the supplementary? And if they had a copy of the supplementary, then why did the other three walk out? Because they could debate the same supplementary. That's my question.
Thank you, caller.
But you ask me why they walked out in support of the leader of the opposition. That's all I can say about that. They will have their own reason. I was not one of them that walked out. If I was the one walked out, I could have said to you why I walked out. But I'm saying the other members walk out in support of the leader of the opposition who was suspended by the Speaker.
All right, let's entertain our final caller. Caller, I guess we lost that caller there. We still have one more. I will give this caller an opportunity to make his or her contribution. Caller, good morning. You're welcome. Via WhatsApp, good morning. Caller via WhatsApp, good morning. You're live. More or less, I'm assuming this caller is having a problem. Mr. Joseph, therefore, we're going to have to take a wrap for today's program. Those who are trying to, of course, get on, my apology for those who are having issues with the line. Sometimes that do happens. Any closing contributions for you this morning in terms of our conversation?
Yeah, I think regard to the rebuilding effort, I would like to see a more speedy response from the government in regard to restoring lives in Carriacou and assisting the people in building back better, as they have said, in Carriacou, because the island need to start seeing some real serious work taking place there so that people can return to their homes and school can resume in the shortest possible time. I would really like to see greater effort been placed. That is not to say the government is not doing anything. I would like to see greater effort. And based on the report that I received from Carrico and other members are receiving, there is a need to accelerate the process in rebuilding Carrico.
Mr. Joseph, once again, I want to thank you for being on the program. I hope to have you return soon again. And we'll continue with more discussions here from the opposition point of view. Thanks to all who contributed on today's program, and have yourself a great day, folks. That's what we say goodbye for today's edition of To The Point.